I was stationed in Nuristan province back in 2010, out near a forward operating base the brass nicknamed Outpost Winterglass. It was supposed to be temporary, a 2-month assignment to patrol a narrow valley system where Taliban traffic had supposedly dropped to zero. I was with 2nd Platoon, Charlie Company. The mission was routine: secure the high ground, recon the trails, and monitor goat routes for signs of movement. Easy stuff, right? No one told us the locals called it the Wadi Siah, the Black Valley. We should have known something was off the minute we hiked in. The place was dead quiet. I mean, Afghanistan quiet, which is already eerie. No wind, no birds, not even the goddamn goats. Just brittle trees like burnt matchsticks and a thick, piney scent that lingered like mold. We were about 5 clicks in when we found the first marker, a ring of rocks arranged in a perfect circle, too symmetrical to be natural. A few of the guys thought it was some kind of shepherd marker. But Doc Reed, our medic, grew up Muslim. His parents were Egyptian, and I'll never forget how his face went pale. He said, "That's not shepherd work. That's a jinn trap." We laughed, of course. We always laughed off that stuff, until night fell. We set up camp on a ridgeline above the valley floor. No fire, too risky. Just our NVGs and a couple of low-glow lamps inside the tents. Around 300, I heard something outside. Thought it was Sergeant Darnell taking a leak. But when I stepped out, everyone was accounted for, still zipped up in their tents. Except the perimeter sensor light, one of those infrared tripwire rigs, was blinking. That meant something had crossed it, and nothing should have been moving out there. We went full alert. I scanned the woods and saw something. Tall, lanky, moving between trees with this jerking, unnatural gait. Not human, not even animal. I swear to you, its legs were bent backward, like a goat's hind legs, only longer. I raised my rifle, but by the time I got a bead on it, it was gone. Vanished into the brush without a sound. That was the first night. The next morning, Reyes went missing. He'd been on watch, posted just north of the camp's edge. We found his rifle planted barrel down in the earth like a damn scarecrow. His boots were still there, but the man, gone. No blood, no sign of a struggle, just empty. We radioed HQ for exfil, but comms were scrambled. Static, just static. Doc kept muttering prayers, and when we tried to track Reyes through the trees, we ended up going in circles. I'm not exaggerating. I cut notches into the bark to mark our path, and somehow we came right back to those same notches. Twice! That's when we found the second thing. A shrine, deep in a grove. It was made of bones, small ones, wired together and hung from tree limbs like wind chimes. Some were charred. Some still had bits of hair on them. They clinked against each other in the breeze, even though the air was still. Hanging in the center of the shrine was a stone mask, carved with slits for eyes and an open, screaming mouth. It looked ancient, pre-Islamic, maybe older than dirt. Someone or something was keeping that place sacred, and we were not welcome. That night, we heard Reyes. Or something that sounded like him. He was calling out from the valley floor, voice all cracked and hoarse like he was dying of thirst. "Help me. I'm cold." But his voice kept repeating the same words, in the same rhythm, like a broken record. It wasn't natural. It didn't come from a human throat. Every time it echoed off the rocks, it sounded wrong. Then came the screaming. Pure agony. It bounced through the trees, high-pitched, like a woman wailing. But there were no women for miles. Doc broke down crying. He said it was a shirel, a ghost of a woman who died violently, often during childbirth, cursed to haunt the mountains forever. He said they drain the life from men, lure them with voices they recognize. Darnell tried to chase the voice, ran into the dark, rifle in hand. We tried to stop him, but he was gone before we could even grab our gear. We found his boots the next morning, sitting neatly side by side. No blood, just a patch of scorched earth and ash. 2 men gone in 2 nights. We stayed 1 more day. Big mistake. That night I had dreams, if you could even call them that. I saw the face of something buried in the rocks. Giant. Its mouth was wide open and full of people. Some were still alive. I saw Rise among them, screaming silently as hands pulled him deeper into the dark. Then I woke up choking. Something was in my tent, a shape, a shadow made of smoke. It pressed its weight against my chest. My NVGs flickered and died. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I felt its hand, if that's what you'd call it, wrap around my throat. And then, just like that, it was gone. I pissed myself. Couldn't even speak. Doc said it was the jinn, that we'd broken some unspoken pact, entered sacred ground, mocked old spirits. The Taliban didn't come here because they were afraid, not of us, but of what lived in that valley. We left at dawn, hiked for 10 hours without stopping. No rest, no chatter, just marching like we were being watched, and I think we were. Just as we reached the extraction point, I looked back, and there it was, perched on the cliff above the valley, tall, black as coal, eyes like burning coals. It had Darnell's face, but twisted, stretched over something far too large. It smiled at me, and then it was gone. I filed the report. They said it was stress, PTSD, environmental delusion. They always say that when they don't know what the hell you're talking about. But 3 months later, I heard 3rd Platoon went into the same valley for recon. They never made it out. 5 men lost. No bodies recovered. The rest, medically discharged. Most won't talk. One of them slit his wrists in a VA hospital last year. He left a note. It said, "The mountain god is real." I haven't slept right since. I still hear rays in the dark sometimes. From Firebase Ambar 2012. I don't know who's listening to this. Maybe no one ever will, but if you do, I need you to understand this. We were not supposed to go in that cave. It was early October 2011. I was in Helmand province, attached to a recon unit out of Firebase Ambar. 3rd team, me, Hudson, Doc Vogel, and Sergeant Mackenzie. We were tracking suspected weapons caches along the hills near Sangin. The Brits called the range the Teeth because of how jagged and steep the cliffs were. We weren't looking for a fight, just a sweep and mark. Except a dust storm came down on us hard and fast. Visibility dropped to 20 feet, and the wind cut through us like knives. We found the cave by accident. At first, it looked like any old rock hole, dark, narrow, maybe 30 meters deep. But as soon as we stepped inside, the wind stopped, like a switch had been thrown. Just total silence. You ever hear real silence? Not just quiet, I mean the kind that makes your ears feel like they're ringing. That's what it was like. The cave went deeper than we expected. The air smelled wrong, like flowers left too long in a vase, sweet but rotting. Hudson made a joke about it being where the Taliban kept their ghosts. I chuckled. Even Vogel smiled. We should have turned around right then. The deeper we went, the colder it got. We passed carvings on the wall, nothing I'd ever seen before. Not Arabic, not even Pashto or Dari. Just these long, slashing symbols, like they'd been cut in with fingernails. Doc Vogel took pictures, but the images all turned out blurred, like the lens couldn't focus. Then we found the bones. Human, lots of them. Skulls, ribs, femurs, all piled into little arranged nests along the floor, like something had been building with them. They weren't old either. Some still had scraps of cloth or dog tags. Not American issue. Russian, maybe? Or older? Sergeant Mackenzie called it in on the SATCOM, but all we got was a high-pitched tone, like a dial-up modem from hell. It didn't stop, just rang in our ears and cut through the cave like a blade. Then we heard her voice. At first, it sounded like a woman crying, way down in the tunnels, muffled and echoing. Hudson looked at me like, "That's not right." No one said it, but we all knew. There weren't supposed to be women here. Not this deep, not this remote. Still, Mac told us to move forward. He was army to the bone, eyes like obsidian. If he was afraid, he didn't show it. We walked another 50 meters into the cave. Lights flickered. My NVGs went static, battery drain. Even the thermals went dark. Then Mackenzie started screaming. We turned around, and he was on the ground, writhing like he'd been hit with a taser. His hands were clawing at his own face, trying to tear something off. But there was nothing there. When Vogel got to him, Mackenzie's eyes were missing. Just 2 empty, wet sockets, blood everywhere. He was still alive, still trying to speak. He said, "She kissed me." Then he started laughing. We had no choice but to carry him back, but when we turned around, the way out was gone. I swear to God, the tunnel had shifted. No joke. The entrance we came through was gone. In its place was another forked tunnel, sloping down at a sharper angle. We thought maybe we took a wrong turn. Maybe the storm blocked the exit with debris, so we kept going. Another half hour passed, maybe more. Time lost all meaning in there. That's when we saw her, standing at the end of the tunnel. She wore a wedding dress, tattered and gray. Her feet didn't touch the ground. Her veil was soaked red. Not like blood had spilled, like the fabric itself was stained with it, dyed in layers of suffering. Her face was beautiful, but not right, too symmetrical, skin pale as ash. Her eyes were mirrors. I saw my own reflection in them, but my face was wrong. It was smiling, even though I wasn't. She raised her hand, and the bones around us began to rattle. Hudson shot her. Full burst, 15 rounds straight to the chest. Nothing. She opened her mouth and sank. That's the best word I can find. It wasn't music. It wasn't sound. It was like emotion made noise. Pure sorrow. Grief turned inside out and set loose. I dropped my rifle. I wanted to curl into a ball and vanish. I felt like I was being unborn. Hudson tried to run. He didn't make it 5 steps. His body just folded. Every bone snapped like a puppet with the strings cut. His scream was short, sharp, and final. The widow turned to me. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up outside the cave. The storm was gone. So were Hudson, Mackenzie, and Vogel. My radio was full of static. When I finally got evac, they said I'd been missing 4 days. I had no food, no water, and no signs of exposure. When I reviewed my helmet cam footage, it cut out right after the bones. Just black. The intel guys said the cave was a myth. Local superstition, they called it. An old story. Afghan villagers tell their kids. A bride who was murdered on her wedding night by raiders, cursed to haunt the cave where she was defiled and buried. They said her song could draw men to her, and if they followed it, they'd never leave. They said it wasn't real. Then they burned my report. Classified the whole thing. Labeled it psychological breakdown due to environmental stress. I was discharged within a month, but I still hear her. At night, when it's quiet, I hear her humming. And sometimes I see Vogel's face in the mirror, staring at me with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. If you ever find yourself in Helmand near the teeth and someone offers you shelter in a cave, don't go in. She's still in there, waiting. First-person monologue transcribed from confidential debriefing, CIA Joint Ops, Forward Operating Base Sabre. They always say drone operators are detached, emotionally removed. I used to believe that. After all, we're thousands of miles from the battlefield, flying Reapers from trailers in Nevada, sipping Monster Energy while locking Hellfire missiles onto heat signatures. No blood on our hands, no dust in our boots. But that's a lie, and I'm living proof. My name's Alex Granger, USAF, 432nd Wing. I was stationed at Creech AFB, just outside Vegas, running ISR and strike missions over Kunar Province. This was back in late 2012, Operation Highland Sweep. Intel had flagged a series of tunnels east of Marawara, deep in the mountains. Apparently, Taliban high-value targets were running weapons through the caverns. Our job was simple: observe, confirm, eliminate. But what I saw out there, it wasn't human. Not Taliban. Not insurgent. Not even wildlife. We called it the Dust Eater. The first time I saw it, I was running a standard pattern. Reaper drone at 23,000 feet, armed with dual Hellfires, infrared imaging up on screen too. Nothing unusual. Then a heat signature popped up inside one of the cave mouths. But it wasn't moving like a person, it was crawling, fast, like a spider. I thought the thermal was glitching, but I zoomed in. Whatever it was, it had 4 limbs and a tail. The tail dragged behind it in the dust, long and thin like a whip. No weapon, no gear. Just flesh, radiating white-hot on the feed. I marked it as an anomaly and moved on. But it kept showing up, every night. Different coordinates, always near old Soviet mine shafts or dried-up wells, and always watching patrols without approaching, like it was studying us. I called it in. Got back the usual, likely canine, potential livestock, disregard until confirmed hostile. But I kept recording it. One night, I caught it doing something that broke every protocol in my training. There was a squad of Marines running a sweep outside Asmar, just a routine route clearance. My drone was overhead, recording. They stopped at a small compound to regroup. 5 men, all accounted for. Then the Dust Eater appeared at the edge of the field. In IR, it looked 7 feet tall, hunched over with joints bent the wrong way. One of the Marines must have seen something because he raised his weapon. But before he could fire, the feed glitched. Just a flicker, a static blink. When the image came back, 1 man was missing. No gunfire, no struggle, just gone. Then, 4 seconds later, I saw the heat signature of the dust eater moving away, dragging something cold behind it. I reported it again. This time, my CO called me into his office. "You want to keep your flight chair, Lieutenant? Then stop making ghost stories out of pixels." I shut up. But I didn't stop watching. The thing started appearing in other feeds, even when I wasn't flying. I'd walk past the ISR review rooms, and there it'd be in the corner of some other drone's surveillance, in infrared, in shadows, in a mirror. It followed the cameras. One analyst swore she saw it look up directly into the MQ-9's nose cam and smile. I didn't believe her, until I saw it do the same to me. I had a feed from a thermal scope on a ranger's helmet. Real-time footage, watching a raid in the Shigal district. Everything normal at first. Then the audio cut out, static. The feed started twitching like it was buffering. And then I saw the dust eater behind the ranger, standing in the corridor, but there was no alert from the squad, no reaction, as if they couldn't see it. Only I could. Its mouth opened slowly, impossibly wide, and what came out wasn't a scream. It was a modulated echo of the ranger's own voice. A perfect mimic, clear left, clear right. Then it was gone, and so was the ranger. I started dreaming about it. No, not dreaming, seeing it, in reflections, in the thermal after images of my eyelids. I'd close my eyes and it would be there, climbing up the side of a mosque, crawling over a truck full of sleeping soldiers, whispering in ones and zeros in infrared static. I stopped sleeping. The base doc gave me Ambien and SSRIs. Didn't help. One night, I was flying a drone over the eastern ridge when the dust eater appeared directly below my Reaper. Not on a mountain, not in a compound, but in the clouds, just floating, looking up at me. My screen cut to black. When it came back online, the drone had crashed. They blamed it on software corruption. I was grounded, suspended. But the worst part, that night I saw it in my own backyard. I was on leave, 2 weeks back in the States, middle of a thunderstorm, 3 a.m., dogs going crazy. I stepped outside and there it was, not in the sky, not on a screen, in the dirt behind my house. It was taller now, standing upright, its tail coiled like barbed wire. No eyes, just dark pits glowing faint red like the last heat from a dying fire, and its voice sounded like mine. Target locked. I woke up the next morning with dust under my fingernails and blood on my shirt. No memory, no explanation. When I called base security, they said my drone logs had been erased. Every video I saved, every still, gone. Not corrupted, deleted. Someone's covering it up. Maybe they've known all along. Maybe that thing isn't just folklore. The locals call it the Sarbazakak, the dust soldier, a spirit created from the bones of dead warriors feeding on electricity and memory. They say he can only be seen by those who kill from a distance, like me. I'm writing this now because I think I've finally figured it out. The dust eater isn't just hunting people, it's hunting watchers. Those who observe war without being touched by it, who think they can kill through a screen and walk away clean. You don't walk away, you just become part of the feed. If anyone finds this message, stop watching, put the cameras down, don't look into the heat, because when you do, it looks back. My name is Staff Sergeant Eric Malloy, 1st Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group. I served 4 rotations in Afghanistan between 2008 and 2012. I've seen ambushes, IEDs, friends turned inside out by shrapnel, but nothing ever got to me like the night we went into Ghazni province and came face to face with the Tall One. We weren't chasing Taliban that night. We were chasing shadows. The op was black, even more than usual. No names, no ranks, no official logs, just a set of GPS coordinates dropped onto a handheld and a short message. Investigate compound, no survivors expected. We thought it was recon on an insurgent cache, maybe a bomb lab. But when we flew in, something already felt wrong. The village was silent, not quiet, dead. Not a single light, not even dogs barking. Just the hum of our rotors and the wind rustling like whispers. We landed a click east of the compound and hoofed it in. The layout was typical. Mud brick walls, narrow alleys, satellite dishes rusting on rooftops. But there was no movement. No signs of life, no fires burning. Then Doc Young found the first body, a man, maybe 30, Skin pale as paper, eyes wide open, mouth torn open like he'd been screaming when he died. But the worst part, he had no shadow, not like a trick of the light. No, even with NVG flares or IR scans, he cast nothing. It was as if something had erased him from existence while he was still standing. That's when Taurus, our comms guy, started whispering. "Do you hear that?" We didn't. But he swore there was a voice coming through the comms, not in English, not in any language we could place. He said it sounded like a woman humming and children crying. Then he froze mid-step and dropped his rifle. "He's here," Taurus said. "He's watching from the corners." We pushed forward, Henwood sweeping house to house. No blood, no resistance, just the dead. Every body twisted, faces locked in horror, and not a single one with a working shadow. It was like they'd all seen something, and it took their outline with it. We found symbols carved into the floors. Tall spirals, jagged triangles inside circles, the kind of shapes that seem to move when you stare too long. It wasn't Taliban work. Hell, it wasn't human work. Then, our NVGs flickered, and the tall one appeared. He didn't walk out of the shadows. He was the shadow. 12 feet tall, bone thin, wrapped in black robes that flickered like static. His face, if you could call it that, was a long, flat oval with no eyes, no mouth, just a crack running down the center of it, pulsing faint red. He stood at the end of the alley, just watching us. I don't remember raising my rifle. I don't remember pulling the trigger, but suddenly we were all firing, every man unloading mags into this thing. Nothing landed. Bullets passed through him like he wasn't there. And then he moved. We lost Thompson first. 1 second he was beside me, the next he was gone. Not dragged away, just absent like a scene in a movie cut too soon. His rifle clattered to the dirt, still warm. Doc Young tried to call in a case vac. All he got was a whisper on the radio, "He walks with the moon." Then Young collapsed, eyes rolled back, body convulsing like he was being electrocuted by something we couldn't see. He started saying names, not ours. Names of people who weren't there. Names from his childhood. I tried to grab him, but his shadow wrapped around his throat and pulled him down. He died choking on his own silhouette. We retreated to a small building and barricaded ourselves inside. Just me, Sergeant First Class Anders, and 2 others, Hyde and Reyes. Reyes was praying in Spanish. Anders was whispering some chant he picked up from a Pashto villager during a previous op, something about Da Garib Sarbaz, the lonely soldier. He said the Afghans believed there was a spirit of vengeance in the mountains, born of the bones of forgotten warriors, one that could steal your soul if you looked at him long enough. That's who Anders believed we were facing. Not the Taliban, not Al-Qaeda, something older. That night, none of us slept, because if you slept, you saw him in your dreams. Hyde nodded off for maybe 60 seconds. Then he shot up, screaming. He said he saw the tall one inside his dream, sitting on his chest, whispering his name backward, peeling open his memories one by one like burning pages. His hair turned white that night, just from the fear. By morning, Reyes was gone, just gone. No broken locks, no signs of escape. His boots were still lined up by the door, only thing left behind, a long shadow on the wall, with no one to cast it. Air support never came. Exfil was scrambled. Our sat maps changed on their own, coordinates flickering between locations that didn't exist. Even our GPS readouts spun like compass needles in a magnet storm. And then the final night came. The tall one came inside. We didn't see the door open. We just looked up, and he was there, filling the hallway like a goddamn oil spill of darkness. The lights went out. Our NVGs fried. All we had was the moonlight bleeding through the cracks in the wall. And in that pale light, we saw our own shadows detach. I'm not kidding. Our shadows peeled off the floor like paper cutouts, stepped forward, and stood in front of us. They looked just like us, but stretched, twisted, like funhouse mirror versions of ourselves, moving out of sync, breathing when we didn't. And then they began to speak. Each of them whispered our deepest secrets, fears we'd never told anyone, things we'd done, things we wished we hadn't done. They told me about the kid I shot by mistake during a raid in Kandahar. They told Anders about the wife he cheated on back home. They said things no one should know. The tall one smiled, just slightly, and we knew what came next. I ran like hell into the night, and when I looked back, Anders didn't follow. He just stood still as his own shadow wrapped around him like a noose. I didn't stop running until I hit the evac team at dawn. They found me half dead, covered in dust, eyes red from burst vessels. I told them everything. They laughed, said I had heat stroke, said there was no team on record, no op in that region, no dead villagers, nothing. They said I was lucky to be alive. But I know better. I still see my shadow move when I'm not. Sometimes it stretches too long, sometimes it hesitates when I turn, and at night I hear footsteps in my dreams. I don't think I ever left that village. I think the tall one let me go, so I could tell his story, and so he could watch me rot from the inside out. If you're sent on a mission where no survivors are expected, get back on the bird, burn your maps, because once you see him, your shadow belongs to him forever. You know what they don't tell you about Afghanistan? It's not just a graveyard of empires. It's a burial ground for gods. Things that were forgotten by time, buried under dust and mountains, still breathing, still hungry. My name's Kyle Mercer, Sergeant, 119th Combat Engineer Battalion. Third tour. Back in 2011, I got assigned to a support detail for a FOB up in Wardak Province, one of those outposts tucked into valleys like open wounds, surrounded by terrain that hated you. The locals kept avoiding a certain patch of land. Told our CO it was cursed. They wouldn't even walk near it. Not the kids, not the old men, not even the dogs. Naturally, that's where command wanted to build a new water purification station. Because who gives a damn about local superstition, right? They brought in me and 3 other engineers to check the area for IEDs or buried mines. It was just a rocky clearing with an ancient stone well at its center. Circular, no mortar, just stacked stones blackened by age. No bucket, no rope, just a void that seemed to drink sound. No wind touched it, no flies, no birds. And yet standing near it, I felt like I was being watched from below. Probably caved in, Corporal Heffley said, tossing a rock in. We never heard it land. The night after our survey, I started hearing scratching in my tent. Then, tapping, faint, rhythmic, like fingernails on teeth. I thought it was rats, until I realized it was coming from underneath my cot. The next day, we brought in a scope to lower into the well, like a sewer cam, infrared enabled. Command wanted us to find the bottom. We dropped it in 100 feet, then 200, then 500. Still black. Finally, at 700 feet, the cam caught something. At first, I thought it was calcite, or maybe an animal carcass. But then it moved. It shifted slightly, revealing a surface covered in teeth. Not bones, not stones. Teeth. Human, animal, impossible to tell, but fused together into something like a mask. A face, smiling. And just before the feed cut out, we saw fingers crawl across the lens. They weren't grabbing it, they were gently caressing it, like a lover's touch. We yanked the line up and shut down the site. Heffley puked. Rodriguez quit the mission. Flat out refused to return to the site. Said he'd rather take a court-martial than go back to the tooth pit. But orders were orders, and the next morning we were told to resume construction. That's when we started losing time. Literally. One guy swore he worked for 5 minutes, looked at his watch. 2 hours gone. Tools disappeared. GPS readings looped back on themselves. And then Heffley went missing. We found his boots by the edge of the well. Untied. Neatly placed. No blood. No sign of a struggle. Just a wet handprint on the stone lip. With 7 fingers. That night I dreamed I was inside the well. Not falling. Floating. The walls were lined with mouths. Thousands of them. Whispering in a language I couldn't understand, yet somehow remembered. They told me my teeth didn't belong to me. They said they were gifts stolen from something deeper than time. Then they showed me myself, toothless, jaw wide open, bleeding gums exposed like raw meat. I woke up spitting blood, and one of my molars was missing. No trauma, no root, just gone. I begged my CO to shut down the site. He accused me of malingering and confined me to base. The next day, Rodriguez shot himself in the head during PT. The bullet didn't kill him, but when the medic opened his mouth to intubate, he found it full of other people's teeth, hundreds of them, like they'd been growing inside him. By now, the Afghans refused to even speak to us. One translator finally broke silence, told me the name they whispered behind closed doors. Shh. Dan. The Tooth Eater, an old myth, a hunger spirit that lived in dry wells, said to have been born when the first man chewed human flesh and lied about it. Its punishment was to live in the dark, forever craving teeth, the only part of us that remembers pain. Do not let it hear your name, the translator said. It can climb through names. We tried to collapse the well. Demolitions, charges. The blast flattened the outer ring, but the hole stayed, perfectly round, untouched. And in the dust afterward, we saw tracks leading out of it. Human-like, but wrong. They walked on all fours, hands first, feet dragging behind like dead weight, and between each print, a single tooth. By the end of that week, I was the only one left from my unit. Everyone else either transferred, cracked, or vanished. One guy bit off his own fingers in the motor pool. Another tore out all his teeth with a multi-tool and left them in a bowl outside the chapel. I was mid-evac home after they caught me digging a hole in the middle of the barracks floor. I kept saying, it's calling me back. Now I live in the States, med boarded out. They said I had persistent hallucinations and combat trauma delusion, but I still wake up with loose teeth on my pillow. And sometimes when I'm brushing, I swear I can hear something tapping inside the drain, like it's still trying to find me. Thank you for walking with us through these haunted valleys, whispered legends, and the dark places American soldiers were never meant to tread. The stories you've just heard are fictionalized accounts, born from the shadows of war and the strange truths that sometimes follow. Whether it was the hollow men of the Korangal, the tall one in Ghazni, or the well of teeth that still echoes in Wardak, these stories serve as reminders that war doesn't just leave scars on the body, it leaves open doors in the mind. We hope these tales left a chill in your bones and maybe made you think twice about what else might be hiding in the places maps don't name. Until next time, sleep light and don't trust your shadow.